Hello, welcome back to my world of stuff. My name, Paul Mount. Today discussing the second of the three 60th anniversary Doctor Who specials, Wild Blue Yonder, that screened yesterday on BBC One in the UK and Disney Plus across the world. The Wild Blue world, if you like. Yeah, written by Russell T Davies, directed by Tom Kingsley. This is the second of the three anniversary specials, and I think at this point now, we're beyond the halfway point of these 60th anniversary specials. I think we have to put some things into perspective. I think a lot of people going into these specials, because they are the 60th anniversary specials, have perhaps had some false expectations about what these episodes would be. I think because they straddle the anniversary period, I think a lot of fans, a lot of people might have thought they were going to be a massive celebration of the history of Doctor Who with old characters coming back, old monsters. That's clearly not what was planned or was the point, and to be honest, I didn't really think it was. And I think that's led to a certain level of disappointment amongst some fans who built themselves into a frenzy that they were going to see Peter Capaldi back, they were going to see Matt Smith back, they were going to see Susan, played by Carol Ann Ford, back, and I don't think any of that was ever on the table. And I think that was particularly a problem, if you can call it a problem, with this second episode, Wild Blue Yonder, because the BBC, Bad Wolf, Russell T Davies kept very quiet about what this episode was going to be all about. The trailers gave away very little, a couple of clips that were released gave away very little, and it was shrouded in secrecy. And in fact, I don't think Doctor Who magazine helped particularly, because I think in their preview of it last month, they had the cast, David Tennant, Catherine Tate, and then three redacted names, which I think just stoked the fires of fan rumour, thinking they were going to be all sorts of returning guest characters. Russell himself has admitted that what they wanted to do with this episode was just keep it completely secret, so that people would go in not knowing what to expect, not really knowing what the story was going to be. But unfortunately, and I've watched a bit of the Doctor Who official podcast on YouTube this morning, and I fast-forwarded to the Russell T Davies clips because I didn't want to see the rest of them. But no, basically he said that perhaps it wasn't such a good idea because it allowed fans to work themselves up into a frenzy that was going to lead to a certain element of disappointment when they watched the episode, purely because it wasn't what they had conjured up in their fevered minds. I don't think they should have been disappointed by the episode that we were presented with, though, which I think was a really interesting, excellent and quite unnerving two-hander, really. It was a chance to put Catherine Tate and David Tennant back together on screen, front and centre, showcase them as actors and what they can do with these characters. And I think in that regard, it worked absolutely brilliantly because it was all about them in an isolated location trying to fight some unnameable horror that manifested itself as facsimiles of them. So you got two Tennant and Tate for your buck, which I think can't be a bad thing. But there has been some disappointments. I've noticed, I try not to get too involved in the fan discourse, the online discourse, but there's been some disappointment that fans have brought upon themselves for thinking this was going to be something it wasn't. Story then, such as it was, and Russell T Davies himself sums it up again in the clips on the fan podcast, or the podcast. The basic story is Doctor and Donna arrive on a spaceship and encounter evil versions of themselves. That's really what the story was. But what made it work was the atmosphere and the creeping sense of dread and some frankly downright bizarre visuals. This was one of the most bizarre Doctor Who stories I've seen in decades, really. It's certainly one of the best episodes I've seen in quite a while. Basically, then the story is the Doctor and Donna, after the events of the last episode, arrive via a rather silly prologue sequence, which we'll come back to, on a spaceship at the very edge of the universe. There's nothing outside, there's no stars, there's nothing there, right at the very edge of the known universe. It's a sort of a concept Doctor Who's dabbled with before in stories like Planet of Evil and Utopia from the new series. But it's done very well here. It's got a huge spaceship. Doctor and Donna are abandoned. The TARDIS has run away. The hostile action displacement system. And here there should be a little asterisk in Marvel comic style. See the Crotons, 1968, 69. The TARDIS has disappeared because it's imminent danger. It's vanished, leaving the Doctor and Donna alone on the spaceship to try and work out what's happening and where they are. They encounter on their travels a strange rusted robot creature which is advancing very slowly along a long corridor. They discover a control room, an abandoned humanoid sitting control thing, and they discover that all is not right on the spaceship because there is something else there, some sort of alien intelligence that duplicates the Doctor and Donna physically, distorts them and tries to become them. The story reminded me of several Doctor Who stories. I know that Russell T Davies in the past has spoken that the Ark in Space from Tom Baker's era is one of his favourite Doctor Who stories, and that's what this resembled at the beginning. The Doctor and Donna aboard an apparently abandoned spaceship, exploring it, trying to find out what's going on. And if you remember the Ark in Space, the entire first episode just featured Tom Baker, Elizabeth Sladen and Ian Marter arriving on this Ark spaceship and discovering what it was there for. This is much more sinister than that, of course, because there's a really bizarre alien threat there. And it reminded me to an extent of Midnight from season 4, where the Doctor has to deal with a nameless, formless alien intelligence that replicates human speech and manifests itself that way by taking over people and then copying their mannerisms. This takes it to the extreme of actually copying the physicality of the Doctor and Donna. And the whole story is puzzle box mystery, if you like, about what's going on in the spaceship, what the Doctor and Donna could do, and how the Doctor and Donna can be sure that the other is the person they think they are. So it is very much a showcase for the talents of David Tennant and Catherine Tate, and it works brilliantly again, as in Star Beast, but even more so here because it's just them. You see the chemistry between these two as performers, and that's what the episode is all about, giving them a real showcase to do what they do. But of course, this isn't, and I know some people have said that the Doctor didn't seem like the Doctor. He wasn't like David Tennant's Doctor. Well, of course, this is the 14th Doctor. It's a variation on the 10th Doctor. And you see that here to an extent because he's not in absolute control of the situation. He's not the indestructible hero. He's as lost as Donna is in some way. Catherine Tate, again, is brilliant as Donna. This feisty, kick-ass companion of the Doctor who's got no romantic interest in him, but is just fascinated by him and what he does and what he can do. And this episode gives the two of them a chance to really explore these characters, for Catherine Tate returning to Donna and David Tennant putting a bit of a spin on the idea of what we know of the 10th Doctor in this adjusted 14th version, if you like. I enjoyed this episode a lot. I was captivated by it. I was fascinated by it because I didn't know where it was going. The resolution was clever, real excitement in it, and some very bizarre visuals. I'll talk about those bizarre visuals because it's very much a green screen Doctor Who episode because there were no sets, the control room sets and things like that. But basically the spaceship itself was all realised by CGI, the exterior, the interior, corridors. And it looked great, it looked brilliant, it looked huge, but it did look CGI. There's no getting away from the fact that this was a very CGI heavy episode. And good as the CGI was, it did look like CGI, and this is one of my issues with CGI. I think it works best when it's augmenting live action and practical stuff. When you rely completely on CGI to create your environment, to create your backgrounds, to create most of what's going on. Because you're aware of CGI, no matter how good it still is CGI, and you know it's CGI, it sort of draws your eye away a little bit, draws your attention. Because you know they're not in a physical set. I mean, whatever you think about the budgetary restrictions of Doctor Who, in the Ark in Space, they were in a set which for the time was quite impressive. It was this big area of suspended animation that humanity was stored in, and it was a physical set that went up a bit. This is obviously CGI means anything's possible, and unfortunately when anything's possible, anything's also can look a bit unreal. So I think the environment didn't completely convince. I think where the CGI really excelled was in the scenes of the Doctor and Donna, the alien Doctor and Donna, becoming these huge creatures. The scenes with the Doctor and Donna where their arms are too long were done by practical effects. They were practical props. The scenes, obviously, where they're huge and chasing Doctor and Donna down the corridor, all done by CGI. And it looked a bit silly, but it was also quite creepy and quite weird because it was so bizarre. You couldn't help feeling a bit disconcerted by it. There's not a great deal to say about the episode because there's not a lot to it other than, as Russell T Davies himself said, Doctor and Donna, evil duplicates. But I think it had a great atmosphere to it, a real sense of mystery and some quite horrific imagery, really, for a tea-time science fiction show aimed at the family. The Doctor, the alien Doctor, contorting himself into this sort of J-horror type spider creature scuttling down the corridor. And the ideas at the end of the spaceship exploding and, spoilers, by the way, if you haven't seen the episode, the fact that the Doctor's taken the wrong Donna on board the TARDIS as it reappears. Lots of stuff in it, lots of exciting stuff in it, lots of weird stuff in it. I wouldn't want Doctor Who to be like this every week, but then that's the great strength of Doctor Who. It's never the same 2 weeks running. I mean, this is the same show that last week gave us the Meep. which is a totally different style of story. And that's the strength of the show, and that's why we keep coming back to it. Really unusual, really experimental. As I say, I don't know if the keeping it secret thing has worked to its detriment, because I think a lot of people have ignored how good it was and just focused on what it wasn't. Which is a shame with hardcore fans, because they do read stupid rumours online and they believe stupid rumours online. They make up stupid rumours and put them online, and then it all gets into the melting pot of fan discourse and people get disappointed when they don't get what they wanted. I didn't particularly want to see Matt Smith back in this, or Peter Capaldi, or anybody. I'd rather Doctor Who move forward than look back too much by bringing back old characters. We had all that last year in The Power of the Doctor. So I think the people who are expecting these anniversary specials to have them back again were just banging on the door that was never going to open, to be honest. So I really enjoyed this episode. I thought it was unusual. I thought it was very well done. However, with the caveat that it was the CGI heaviness of it made it a bit cold. And I think that's probably quite a good thing in a way, because it was a cold, eerie and disturbing story, which I really enjoyed. And I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. I thought it was that good. I thought it was unusual, different, challenging, pushing, towards the edges of what Doctor Who could do. And it's an interesting pointer to where we may be going in future episodes. I think anything's possible, basically. One other thing to discuss, I suppose. After all the discussion last week about Doctor Who being preachy and woke, and that was certainly in the press went nuts over it. There is an element of the press and in fandom that won't have Doctor Who doing anything other than telling straightforward adventure stories. Doesn't want any social commentary, doesn't want any contemporary observations about the real world, just wants it to be running up and down corridors and quarries, running away from aliens. It's not going to be like that anymore. It's not 1966 anymore. It's 2024. 3 even. Doctor Who is going to be more self-aware, more aware of the world. And with Russell T Davies writing, it's going to have a social conscience. It's going to have representation and diversity and gender issues dealt with. Fans who can't or won't accept that need to walk away instead of banging on about it week after week, calling it Doctor Woke, go broke, preachy, That's, as I said in the last review, television is like that now. All television has these issues and presents these issues. It's reflecting the world. If you don't like it, I don't know, what can I say? Just don't watch it anymore. There are 2 points in this episode which have wound people up, but perhaps not as much as the last episode, and they're moments that account for less than 1 minute of the whole, because this was, at its core, a science fiction adventure. The bits that have annoyed people, and I'll deal with the second one first, is that very short sequence where the Doctor and Donna are walking down the corridor, having met Isaac Newton, played by Nathaniel Curtis in the pre-credit sequence. They got their knickers in a twist because Donna says, Isaac Newton is hot, and the Doctor says, oh yeah, so hot. Oh, is that what I am now? And she makes a reference to, yes, it was never far from the surface. The indication being that the Doctor is gay or bisexual. Again, fans have got themselves in a bit of a tiz about this. Get over it, really. It was one very short line, a jokey sort of thing. Russell T Davies, I think Russell T Davies is prodding the bear a little bit with his new scripts. He knows the things that are going to wind certain fans up, and he doesn't mind winding those certain fans up, because he's not interested in appeasing or appealing to that demographic, that closed-minded demographic. He wants to appeal to a broader audience. That's going to cause some confusion, some alarm, some distress, and some argument and some unhappiness. It was a throwaway line, it was a bit of a joke. I didn't mind it. The other issue is, as I mentioned, Nathaniel Curtis playing Isaac Newton in the pre-credit sequence. This doesn't bother me particularly. Nathaniel Curtis is mixed race. Isaac Newton wasn't. And I think that I'm all for colourblind casting. I think it's a good idea. If you've got a character, it doesn't matter what race they are. Cast the best actor. If that person is black, yellow, white, cast the best person for that role. I do have to say, I do rankle a little bit when you're tampering with history. Isaac Newton wasn't mixed race. Isaac Newton is depicted as a white man. And I don't see the point in this needless antagonism of casting outside the accepted appearance of somebody. Colourblind casting works fine. An example of it is the film David Copperfield that came out a few years ago, directed by Armando Iannucci, who cast Dev Patel as David Copperfield. Purists may roll their eyes, but David Copperfield is a fictional character. He can be anything. And same with the Doctor. The Doctor is a fictional character. He can be a man, he can be a woman, he can be black. But I think when you're looking at a historical character, I think you have to try and represent in an honest and realistic and historically accurate way. And I think that casting Nathaniel Curtis gave a fine performance in the 2 minutes he was on screen, if that. Didn't represent Isaac Newton as he's known as. And I think if Doctor Who has any remaining remit to be educational, I think it needs to educate correctly rather than by a perspective from contemporary issues. Doesn't bother me enough. As I said last time, I've got no skin in the game. I've got no horse in the race. It doesn't really bother me, but I do. It is an example, I think, of slightly prodding the bear, which is unnecessary when you're doing it elsewhere. But that's my only issues, really. As I say, I'm conscious of, it's a personal thing. I think if you're doing a historical story with recognised historical characters who have been visualised in a certain way, you really need to stick to that, because you're not being honest to the character, you're not being honest to history. And I think that's a shame in a series which celebrates diversity and inclusivity and is about time travel. If you're doing time travel, then if you're depicting a historical character, I think you should be doing it as they are known to have looked. Anyway, that's just my view on that. You may disagree. There may be screaming comments disagreeing with me. I don't know. It's up to you. But anyway, that's the only little bits, I think, that will have wound people up in this episode, I think. I will, of course, mention the beautiful final sequence where the Doctor and Donna return to Earth, a couple of days ahead of when they left it, to find there are problems, but there waiting for them in his wheelchair is Wilf, played by the brilliant Bernard Cribbins. His final appearance in the series, was intended that he'd film some scenes for next week's episode, but unfortunately he was too ill, and this one scene was all they managed to do. And I will say, his performance was pitch perfect. It was the Wilf of old, obviously much more infirm, but his performance, the joy that he had in seeing Donna back and then seeing the Doctor in a familiar face. A beautiful final scene for a terrific actor who, is much missed already. He's left us last year, and the world seemed a better place with Bernard Cribbins in it, to be honest. And it was a lovely little coda to his time as Wilf in the series back in the noughties. So R.I.P. Bernard Cribbins, and it was a lovely scene, really nicely done, and it was nice to see a tribute to him at the end of the episode. Right, that's Wild Blue Yonder. Next week we have The Giggle, the final David Tennant, Catherine Tate episode of this little run, reintroducing the Toy Maker, played by Neil Patrick Harris. A review up this time next week, presumably. I hope you've enjoyed this review. If you have, why not like and subscribe if you've just stumbled on this channel looking for reviews. Look back at the previous stuff I've done, ranking videos, Doctor Who Revisited, looking at some old classic series, and of course reviewing these episodes, plus more and more Doctor Who stuff. Plus, if you're not into Doctor Who, lots of non-Doctor Who stuff as well. Right, just to explain, I've got my scarf on, I've got my coat on actually, because I'm in the cinema room where I usually film. Haven't been in for a couple of days, so it's a bit parky, even though I've got the heaters on. I'm just warming myself up, slowly but surely. Right, thank you for watching. As I said, please like and subscribe. Welcome to some new subscribers, by the way. Had some more since the last episode. Creeping up nicely, heading towards that big 500. Would be nice to get there by Christmas. I don't think that's going to happen, but if you do feel like subscribing, please do. I'll see you next time. Until I do, keep taking the stuff.